Daniel lived for Clara, from the day he married her. Every breath, every drop of sweat, every coin he earned belonged to her. Welcome to my channel. Please stay with me as I tell you this story. Don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to this channel. For your support means a lot to me. Back to my story. He worked the longest shifts at the factory, picked up side jobs under the blazing sun, and sold even his father's land, just so Clara could have the boutique she dreamt of. When neighbors whispered that Daniel was foolish, he laughed it off. They don't understand. He would say, when she's happy, I'm happy. To Daniel, love was sacrifice. And sacrifice meant giving until it hurt. Clara never had to lift a finger. She lived like a queen in a castle Daniel built with his hands. She demanded gold earrings, he delivered. She asked for trips abroad. He worked himself sick to fund them. His shoes wore thin, his belly often went empty. But Clara's smile, when it came, was his reward. Yet her smile came less and less. Clara grew restless, distant, irritable. She scolded Daniel for being too simple, mocked his exhaustion, and dismissed his devotion as weakness. Daniel thought she was stressed. He pushed harder, believing if he gave just a little more, she would finally see the depth of his love. One stormy evening, Daniel rushed home early. He had saved for months to buy her a necklace, hoping it would rekindle their fading spark. The rain pounded as he climbed the stairs. Clutching the small box in his calloused hands, he opened the bedroom door, heart pounding with excitement, and froze. Clara was not alone. Another man's arms were wrapped around her, their laughter filling the room Daniel had built with his sweat. The necklace slipped from his hand, clattering onto the floor. His world shattered in that single moment. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, the storm raging outside, matching the storm in his chest. Clara gasped when she saw him, but instead of shame, her face twisted with irritation, as though he were the intruder in his own home. The man with her smirked, pulling on his shirt lazily, unashamed. The necklace lay between them, glinting under the dim light like a cruel joke. Daniel's hands trembled as he reached for it, but his body felt weak, hollow. He couldn't even muster the strength to shout. Clara's voice cut through his silence. You should have knocked, she said coldly. Those words shattered whatever was left of him. He staggered back, his vision blurring, the weight of years of sacrifice pressing down on him. Clara's betrayal was not just an affair. It was proof that every ounce of his devotion had been worthless. The days that followed blurred together. Daniel stopped eating. He roamed the streets aimlessly, haunted by flashes of that night. He replayed every memory, every sacrifice, wondering where he had gone wrong. Clara, meanwhile, moved through the house with arrogance, speaking to him only to hurl blame. You smothered me, you bored me. That's why I found someone else. She sneered one morning, her eyes sharp with contempt. Daniel's heart cracked deeper. He looked at their baby, innocent, tiny, reaching for him with chubby hands. For a fleeting moment, the child gave him a reason to breathe. But then Clara's voice echoed in his head, mocking him, stabbing him with the reminder of betrayal. The baby cried softly in the night. Daniel sat in the dark, clutching his head, whispering to himself. The love he had built his life on was gone, and in its place, a dangerous emptiness began to grow. Nights became Daniel's prison. He would sit alone in the dimly lit living room, the clock ticking loudly against the silence, while Clara slept without a care. The baby's soft whimpers from the cradle pierced through the darkness, but instead of soothing Daniel, they tore at him. At first, he tried to hold on to reason. He told himself he still had his child. That innocence deserved protection no matter what Clara had done. But soon, his thoughts became poisoned. Whenever he looked at the baby, he saw Clara's face, the same mocking eyes, the same cruel smile. Whispers began to crawl into his mind. They weren't real, yet they felt more alive than his own heartbeat. She used you. She laughed at your sacrifices. Even this child is hers, not yours. Daniel shook his head violently, clutching his temples, but the whispers returned, stronger each night. Sometimes, he swore he could hear Clara's voice, taunting him in the cries of the baby. Sleep eluded him. His eyes grew hollow, his body weak. One evening, Clara stood in the doorway, arms folded, sneering. Look at you. Pathetic, you can't even be a man after what happened. She slammed the door shut, leaving him alone with the child. Daniel's hands trembled as he reached into the cradle. The baby smiled innocently, but Daniel's mind twisted it into mockery. His chest heaved, his breath came shallow, and the whispers returned like thunder. You will never be free until you let go. Daniel froze, staring at the fragile life in his arms. For the first time, a thought surfaced, dark, forbidden, but irresistible. And once that thought took root, there was no turning back. The decision came on a cold, moonless night. Daniel had driven for hours, the baby strapped in the back seat, giggling softly, unaware of the storm inside his father's heart. The road stretched endlessly, deserted, as if the world itself had abandoned him. His hands clutched the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Sweat drenched his shirt despite the chill in the air. The whispers were relentless now. End it. Free yourself. She never loved you. Daniel's eyes darted to the rearview mirror. The baby's bright eyes met his. Full of trust, full of innocence. That gaze stabbed him deeper than Clara's betrayal ever had. His chest burned with guilt, love, rage, and despair all tangled into one unbearable knot. Finally, he pulled over near a flickering streetlight. The silence of the night was broken only by the engine's low hum and the distant howl of a dog. Daniel stepped out, his legs trembling, then opened the back door. The baby cooed, reaching out with tiny fingers. For a fleeting second, Daniel's heart screamed at him to stop, to turn back, to hold on. But the whispers roared louder, drowning out reason. He placed the child gently on the gravel by the roadside, wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket. The baby's wails tore through the night air, each cry a dagger slicing through Daniel's soul. "I'm sorry," he whispered hoarsely, tears streaming down his face. I can't anymore." He stumbled back into the car, his vision blurred by tears. As the engine roared and the car disappeared into the distance, the baby's cries grew fainter. Unseen by Daniel, a shadow moved nearby. Someone was watching, and the child was no longer alone. The cries of the baby hadn't gone unnoticed. From the shadows of the deserted street emerged a figure, moving silently with purpose. A woman, ragged in appearance but sharp-eyed, approached cautiously. Her gaze flicked to the road behind her, then to the tiny wailing figure on the gravel. She knelt down, her hands trembling slightly as she scooped the baby into her arms. The infant's cries softened against her chest, as if sensing the strange protection surrounding them. She adjusted the thin blanket around the child, whispering soothing words. "Don't cry, little one, you're safe now," she murmured, though her voice quivered with uncertainty. The woman's name was Ruth. Years ago, she had lost a child of her own, a wound that had never fully healed. Seeing this abandoned baby reignited a grief that had never faded. She knew she could not leave the child on the roadside, exposed to the dangers of the night. Ruth glanced around, eyes scanning the empty streets. A chill ran down her spine as the wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere out there, someone, perhaps the father, perhaps worse, might be watching. She clutched the baby tighter and turned down a narrow alley, disappearing from sight. Though Daniel had vanished into the distance, his choice had set off a chain of events he could never have imagined. The child, Samuel, was alive, but now under the care of a stranger who would raise him in secrecy. Yet even as Ruth whispered promises of protection, the night seemed to watch her, and somewhere deep in the shadows, a reckoning was already beginning. The story of betrayal, abandonment, and survival was only beginning. Clara awoke the next morning to an emptiness that made her blood run cold. The baby's cradle was empty. At first, she thought it was a cruel trick, a dream twisting in her mind. But as her panic surged, reality hit. Daniel's car was gone. The baby was missing, and the world she had controlled so easily was unraveling. She screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed through the neighborhood. Neighbors peeked through windows, murmuring to one another, unsure whether to intervene. Clara, once haughty and untouchable, began to lose her composure. She blamed Daniel immediately, her voice laced with venom. "He's taken the child, that monster," she cried, tears streaking her makeup. But Daniel had vanished into the night. His footsteps were gone, and the whispers of betrayal that had consumed him remained his alone. Clara's fury morphed into desperation. She called friends, neighbors, even strangers, offering bribes for information about the baby. The boutique, her pride and joy, suddenly felt meaningless. Every demand she had ever made of Daniel now came back to haunt her. Her public image, a woman always in control, always admired, was beginning to crack. Even as Clara searched tirelessly, she could not shake the creeping fear. Somewhere out there, the child she had taken for granted, the very symbol of her status and power, was in someone else's hands. And the knowledge that she had driven Daniel to the edge gnawed at her like a silent poison. The streets that had once whispered her name with admiration now seemed to mock her. Every shadow, every passerby felt like a judgment. And unknown to Clara, the stranger who held her child was preparing to raise him far from the life she had known. A life filled with deception, betrayal, and consequences she could never escape. Ruth held the baby close, feeling the fragile warmth of life against her chest. She had lost her own child years ago, and the memory had never left her. Yet this infant, tiny and wailing, seemed to have been sent to her for a reason. She named him Samuel, a name that carried hope, protection, and a second chance at motherhood. Every night, Ruth whispered to Samuel, promising safety, love, and a life free from the cruelty that had abandoned him. She bathed him, fed him, and held him through storms and sleepless nights, slowly building a fragile yet unbreakable bond. The child's laughter, soft and innocent, filled her home with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, the town buzzed with speculation. Clara, frantic and relentless, spread the story that Daniel had taken the baby, painting him as unstable, dangerous, and unfit to be a father. Gossip rippled through neighbors and local shops. Whispers of abduction and betrayal made their way into every corner, fueling fear and tension. Ruth kept to the shadows, aware that anyone could uncover her secret. She feared the law, feared Clara's wrath, and most of all feared losing Samuel. Yet every time she held him, she felt resolve. This child was not just a baby, he was a second chance, a reason to defy the injustice of the world. In the quiet moments, Ruth thought of Daniel. Was he alive? Had he truly abandoned his child? Or was he a broken man haunted by guilt? And somewhere in the night, she felt it. The story was far from over. The fragile peace she had built could crumble at any moment. And when it did, the consequences would be devastating for everyone involved. Daniel wandered through the streets, like a man already dead. Sleep eluded him, the baby's cries haunted his dreams, and the memory of placing Samuel on the roadside tormented him every waking hour. He drank heavily to dull the pain, but even the alcohol could not numb the gnawing emptiness in his chest. Clara, seeing an opportunity, seized it. She began whispering to neighbors, friends, and authorities that Daniel was unstable, a danger to the child, a man incapable of fatherhood. Her venomous words painted him as a villain, and the town listened. Daniel, already broken, had no voice strong enough to defend himself. The whispers that had driven him to the edge now multiplied, outside and inside his own mind. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him, judging him, accusing him. His body weakened, his spirit frayed. He stopped caring for his own needs, wandering aimlessly, his thoughts consumed by Clara's betrayal and his irreversible actions. Yet amidst the chaos, Daniel held one truth close. Clara had driven him to this point. Every mockery, every accusation, every betrayal had led him to abandon the only child he had ever tried to protect. And still, deep in the shadows of his mind, he plotted, not for revenge against Clara, but for some twisted sense of justice, for the reckoning he believed was owed. The town, the law, and even Ruth, who protected Samuel, were all pieces in a story that was spiraling beyond control. Daniel's downfall was near, yet it was also the spark that would ignite the final confrontation, a collision of lies, betrayal, and truths long buried. No one in the town suspected the full story, and few would survive the revelation unscathed. Rumors spread like wildfire. Someone had seen Ruth with a baby matching Samuel's description, and soon whispers reached the authorities. Police traced the lead to her small, hidden home. When they arrived, they found Ruth holding the child, alive and healthy. The infant's cries filled the room, but there was no malice in them, only innocence. Clara arrived moments later, frantic and furious. Her high heels clicked against the floor as she shoved past officers, demanding the child be returned immediately. Her face, once poised and proud, was now a mask of desperation. Daniel appeared shortly after. Drawn by the rumors, he entered silently, and the room fell into an uneasy silence. He looked at Samuel, then at Clara, and finally, with a quiet voice, confessed, "I left him on the roadside. I couldn't bear it anymore. She betrayed me," he said, his hands shaking. Every word dripped with guilt, rage, and heartbreak. The officers exchanged glances, unsure how to react to a man so broken yet so honest. But the final blow came when the DNA results arrived. Samuel, innocent Samuel, was not Daniel's child. The revelation hit Clara like a lightning strike. The man she had betrayed and scorned had never been the father. Her infidelity had created a lie that now shattered her carefully constructed life. The room was silent, except for the baby's soft coos. Daniel, broken but freed from illusion, stepped back, leaving Clara to face the consequences of her choices. Ruth held Samuel close, a silent protector in the storm of betrayal and lies. The truth was finally exposed, and with it came judgment, pain, and a twisted sense of justice no one had anticipated. The dust settled, but the scars remained. Clara's reputation lay in ruins. Neighbors whispered, friends turned away, and her boutique closed. She had lost everything: her power, her pride, and the illusion of control she had so desperately clung to. The truth of her betrayal was public, leaving her isolated and humiliated. Daniel walked away from it all. He did not seek revenge, nor did he try to reclaim Samuel. The knowledge that the child had never been his, combined with the betrayal he had suffered, left him hollow but strangely free. He vanished into the night, a man scarred forever by love, betrayal, and the choices he had made. Ruth, though briefly scrutinized by the law, emerged as Samuel's protector. She embraced the responsibility with quiet strength, raising the child with love, patience, and vigilance. Samuel thrived, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had marked his earliest moments. Years passed, and the echoes of that night, the roadside, the cries, the betrayal, never fully left Daniel. Occasionally, on cold nights, when the wind whispered along deserted streets, he would imagine Samuel's cries echoing through the shadows. But he also carried a sense of closure. The truth had been revealed, and justice, though harsh, had found its mark. Samuel grew resilient, shaped not by the sins of his parents, but by the love Ruth poured into his life. Clara remained a cautionary tale in the town, a story of arrogance, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of choices made in selfishness. And Daniel, he disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving behind only memories of a man who loved too deeply, sacrificed too much, and learned the bitterest lesson of all: not all devotion is rewarded, and not all love is returned. The roadside, once a scene of heartbreak and despair, became a silent witness to a story of betrayal, survival, and the indomitable will of those left behind to carry on. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more stories.